Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porto. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
All good. Another Tuesday, more wrestling.
More wrestling. Huge news. We got a loaded show this week. I don't know. I Googled Joe Carter, former Toronto Blue Jay star. That's not who I wanted to Google. We wanted to start off the show real quickly with a quick acknowledgement. Former COO of Ring of Honor, Joe Koff, has passed away. The magnitude for which this man impacted the industry is severely underplayed sometimes. Um, apparently, it was MLW who announced his passing, even though he didn't work for MLW. He was most known as kind of the. I want to say he was appointed by Sinclair when they bought Ring of Honor to oversee them. And when he came in, he became a huge supporter of the brand and fought for them a lot. And it was in part due to him that people were able to start getting paid very well in Ring of Honor. The announcement wrote, MLW is deeply saddened to learn of the passing of former Ring of Honor COO Joe Koff. On behalf of MLW, we extend our heartfelt condolences to his family and loved ones. Joe always led with honor, integrity, and the passion for the sports we all cherish. His legacy will live on in the hearts of everyone he inspired. Thank you, Joe, for your contributions and unwavering dedication to wrestling. Rest in peace. PWI reports that Koff had been battling illness for some time and decided that he was just going to discontinue treatment in order to enhance the quality of time he had left with his family. Koff got his first, and this is from the Observer Online, F4W Online. Koff got his first experience in wrestling with Championship Wrestling from Florida, which was produced by the TV station he was employed by in Tampa. Later, while an executive for Sinclair Broadcast Group, Koff, along with Ring of Honor Jim Cornette and Gary Juster, helped put together the deal for Sinclair Broadcast Group to buy Ring of Honor from Kerry Selkin in 2011. Without that deal, it's likely Ring of Honor would have gone out of business. Kopp had the title of Chief Operating Officer in Ring of Honor until Sinclair Broadcast Group sold the promotion to AEW TonyCon in 2022. Following the sale, Koff reflected on his time running Ring of Honor. Quote, as I look back on this amazing journey, there are so many people who joined the journey with me, our staff, our brilliant athletes that will always known as Ring of Honor, our partners in production and distribution, our vendors, and most importantly, you, our fans. I want to thank you personally for your continued support, belief in me and the product and what we do and what we would do and what we did. It was a journey of a lifetime, and I thank you for sharing it with me. So some people do confuse Koff with Kerry Selkin. Kerry Selkin used to be the owner of Ring of Honor. Koff was the man that was employed with Sinclair Broadcast Group, who was appointed to run the company after the purchase. I think he did a wonderful job considering the financial restrictions that Sinclair Broadcast Group had. At the time, they were doing well financially, but they invested a hell of a lot of money in a baseball streaming service that never launched. And because of that, if you're watching, baseball in the United States, you'll know that a lot of teams are without a supplier, a distributor, or a channel, if you will, because the group that was in fact broadcasting the games was Sinclair Broadcast Group, and they've gone bankrupt, which is why Ring of Honor got sold. So his involvement and ability to grow the brand the way it was and to feature it the way they did, it was never mainstream, but it was successful enough that they could pay some of their top guys six figures. And when you take a company, and Nigel McGuinness even kind of said, when he was talking about when he worked for Ring of Honor, he made at his apex $48,000 a year working for Ring of Honor. This was way before Sinclair Broadcast Group had bought it. Nigel has gone on to say that had he been wrestling with Ring of Honor, I think something to the effect like had he been wrestling with Ring of Honor, he would have been making well into six figures had he wrestled during the Sinclair era. And when you hear that, that's a testament to what Sinclair was able to do for the brand, but specifically what Joe Koff was able to do for the brand as well. A champion for wrestling and a champion for the wrestlers. He kept the promotion going during the pandemic. We actually probably enjoyed Ring of Honor the most in its Sinclair era during the pandemic because that was when they did the return to the pure title and John Gresham's run started in that time period. He kept people working, kept people paid. There are few guys in the wrestling industry who have such sterling reputations as Joe Koff. He will be missed. 73 years old, though. Not a bad run, if I do say so myself. We would all be so lucky to have that kind of a go around. So, Joe Koff, you will be missed. Thank you. And goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, truly one of wrestling's unsung heroes. Glad we got to sing some of his praises tonight. Rest well.
Yep. Speaking of resting well, a lot of AEW fans and WWE fans are torn up for vastly different reasons around WrestleDream 2024. One, I love the name WrestleDream. I love it. I wish it held more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I wish it was seen in a bigger sphere in the AEW card. It's such a great name. It's one of those. It's like it. Now, granted, it may be too close to WrestleMania or Wrestle Kingdom, but it could be their A show, right?
Yeah, you want to have a little bit more cachet, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little bit prestige is the word I was losing on. I was like, what's the word? And a lot of things happened. A lot of things happened on this week. Brian Cage won the Ring of Honor World title by defeating Atlantis Jr. Anna Jay defeated Harley Cameron. The Acclaimed defeated what is it just MXM? Is that just their thing now? MXM.
Yeah, you said Cage won the world title?
Cage won the TV title, the world television title. I don't know why it's the world television title, but that's what it is. It's not the Ring of Honor world title. That's still Mark Briscoe's.
Yeah, so they beat MXM. Maybe what it was, not Private Party. It was
the Acclaimed.
The Acclaimed, yeah.
Now, the thing that happened here that I thought was really cool was Rico. Long time, I shouldn't say long time, he only had like a 6-year run. Former WWE wrestler Rico popped up, and he was the corner man for the MXM collection. Now, Rico was near death not that long ago. He was having a lot of heart issues. I had heard somewhere, and I guess it wasn't true, that he was also dealing with like early onset dementia, but that doesn't seem to be the truth. I think he just has had some other health issues, but he is seemingly rebounded. You know, he's 63, and he's in fantastic shape. Obviously, you're not going to ask him to wrestle anymore. He's 63. Not everyone can be Sting or Terry Funk. But to see him healthy, to see him involved and excited, like, it was cool. You know, say what you will about Billy and Chuck and Rico's running WWE, which really only lasted for like 2.5 years, if we're being honest. Like, say what you will about all that. It was cool to see him. I love when wrestlers and managers, what have you, get a second leash on life. I wouldn't mind seeing Rico do more with the MXM collection. I think that's a tailor-made manager for a gimmick that works perfectly with his whole shtick.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a great evolution of where you come. As soon as you said Rico's name, all I could think about was the "You look so good to me," that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a good, like I said, that's a great evolution of where he was with the obviously Billy and Chuck. Um, So it really kind of almost seems like a seamless transition, really. And like, I don't think saw like a snippet of him from a pic, but he does look good. So it's good to hear that he's on the other side of whatever health problems he was having. And yeah, I mean, they kind of need to be taken more seriously in a regard, or have another aspect to that whole thing, because it is very like heightened metrosexual situation
Mm-hmm.
by those two. And kudos to them too for being able to come out of WWE and still being able to make something out of something that was trash elsewhere and make it work for them. on the Indies and now on AEW. So kudos to them. So yeah, that's a great thing. And AEW is quickly becoming a place for a lot of OGs, if you will, to get some quality shine. You look at Rico, you talking about Billy Gunn with other team and his boys, and Jake the Snake and all the stuff that they did for Sting and whatnot. They're doing good by a lot of older guys.
They are, and a lot of these guys, they had their run in WWE, and you wish that they were getting more of the rub from the WWE. But like Stone Cold once said, I think it was the Mania of WrestleMania mini movie that they did. Stone Cold said, like we're all just gears in this machine. I may be an important gear, but eventually I'm going to get, grounded up and replaced. And that seems to be their whole shtick. Maybe now more so than ever, and it sucks. But hey, what are you going to do? Not watch. I don't. The conglomeration of Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly teaming with the Outrunners, Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum, who was being seconded by Rocky Romero, defeated the Dark Order's Alex Reynolds and John Silver. I didn't know the Dark Order was still around, so like that's interesting. The premier athletes, Arya Daivari and Tony Nese, who is accompanied by Smart Mark Sterling, Josh Woods, and Evo Uno. Whatever. It was just a way to get Orange Cassidy and the Outrunners on. Then we open up the show in earnest with Jay White defeating Hangman Page by pinfall. I don't get AEW's desire to book two dudes who need a win into a feud. I don't get that at all. Jay White obviously knew when he was coming back. Heyman Adam Page was coming off of his brief but intense feud. I shouldn't say brief. I would say the chapter of this feud with Swerve is brief. But the feud with Swerve has been going on for quite some time now. But, like, you don't want to cool off Hangman's momentum. He burnt down a dude's house, strap a racket to his ass, and see how far he can go with him. Him eating a loss to Jay White through any means is not great for his character. And the issue isn't, well, Jay White should have lost. No. The issue is these two shouldn't have been involved in a match with one another regardless. Especially with Jay White's whole thing being, hunting down Christian Cage. So I don't get it. Good match. Real good match.
Yes.
I think Adam Page has the charisma of a horse's ass, but, like, listen, he can wrestle.
Yeah, this is the most interesting he's been to me his whole AEW run, really.
I would say his entire career, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I remember one time I kept eye on him because he was really hot in New Japan, but that's also a completely different environment. What have you? Also was a part of the Bullet Club. There's a lot of factors going on at that time that I think came together and worked for him. But here, yeah, this is the most interesting he's been. And Jay White, I'm guessing he's the whole thing is about him being on, I guess, a little, without saying, a revenge tour of anybody that had anything to do with him being out in the first place. Uh, on screen wise, I think off screen we know he was kind of working with some travel issues. So yeah, first it started with Page, now he's moving on to Christian Cage, which should be interesting to say the least because you can't just deal with Christian Cage alone. So that should hold him up. But yeah, like you said, they do need to keep a momentum with Page because one, he won the feud, and two, unless he's done with that by now, or done with that for now when it comes to Swerve, he could either go back in that direction or go in another direction towards an actual title. So, to your point, they need to do something. But having him going on a losing streak specifically, when didn't he just beat Jarrett too?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of those, man, that was good. Jarrett's doing a really great job of putting a lot of intensity and emotion behind stuff that really is only going to last a couple weeks. Of course, he's however many years a veteran now, so that's kind of textbook for him. But yeah.
We move on to Maria May defeating Willow Nightingale. Willow has definitely impressed me. Hell of a
Mm-hmm.
run. She's done so much to get herself not only into great condition, but she's raised her own expectations. My only complaint, is that it seems like the women's world title takes a backseat to Mercedes Moné. And while I think, she's a good get, she legitimizes your division, she gives you one hell of a worker. I don't understand the need to put the TBS title in such a high prestigious part of the programming when Maria May and Tony Storm had the Women's Feud of the Year for AEW, and Will Nightingale, maybe second only to Athena, has been
Yeah.
one of the better undercard wrestlers for the brand.
Yeah, it's that's what I call Sasha Mercedes is basically their female Brock. Where they pay her, they're probably paying her too much to not make her the emphasis
Yeah,
all the time. But yeah, I kind of look at that whole situation and get your take on this as well. Like it's kind of it reminds me of like the TNT um in contrast to the international championship. Like we know like the guy probably is the international championship, but they'll put a little importance or they'll make it feel like the TNT is important because of who's holding it or whatever narrative is around the guy who's holding it at the time. But we know that TNT title is basically the hot potato title of the thing, and it also like changes colors more than like Skittle combinations in the '90s or whatever. So that's kind of how I feel about the women's situation. Like the TBS title is whatever, but it's because it's Mercedes holding it. Like we know that the AEW women's is where it's always kind of been for the top chick to have. So we'll see how it goes, but definitely it feels like they're kind of waiting for Tony to come back for Mariah. But yeah, like you said, Willow's one of the best hands down she's had. I mean, that feels like it could be a match of the year candidate. I put her match with Stat in that category personally, and then she did some great stuff with Sadis as well. So the girl don't miss. I think she's definitely a future champion. They're just not right now.
agreed. Absolutely agreed. Uh, I saw a photo. It was a guy who drew a stick figure, and he pointed an arrow to the stick figure, and the caption read, "This is Jack Perry." Just like Jack Perry, or hang on, I have it opened up. The sign says, "This is Jack Perry," with an arrow pointing to the stick figure. And the sign continues on to say, "Neither of us draws very well." Honest to God. Fuck.
That's good.
Right?
Oh, that's good.
And honestly, yeah, Jack Perry's ass. He beats Katsuyori Shibata. There we go. In a TNT title match. And listen, like Shibata, the man is, what, 45? 44. He'll be 45 in November. He nearly killed himself headbutting, who the fuck was it? Okada? In like
Yeah, I gave
2016.
hematoma. Yeah,
Like nearly killed himself in 2017. He smacked his own head into another man's head so hard that he had a brain bleed and nearly died. Signed with AEW, basically has been wrestling, I would say, quote unquote, full time as far as what you would expect an AEW wrestler to be wrestling. He's not going out wrestling 300 times a year like all the old heads used to say they did back in the day. But he's done what, 26 matches this year. So like impressive, sincerely. But I don't expect him to win. One, the TNT title sucks. It's one of the dumbest. The TNT and TBS titles suck. Just period. So like, if I want him to win a belt, it's not going to be that crappy ass title. Two, Jack Perry, like they're he is the nega meme wrestler. We'll talk about Joe Hendry in a bit, but there's this concept that when a wrestler gets popular because he has an aspect that becomes very trendy, we dub them a meme wrestler. Fandango, meme wrestler. Jericho with his list, a meme wrestler. Now, some meme wrestlers can outlive the idea of being a meme. But like in 2012, Austin Aries got over because he could wrestle really well and wore a stupid cape. And TNA's like, screw our plans, we're going to put the title belt on him instead of building up to the Bound for Glory blow-up between Bobby Roode and James Storm, when in actuality, that was the title feud that should have, been. Storm should have taken the belt off of Bobby Roode at Bound for Glory in the main event. It would have been fantastic. Instead, we had, I think it was what, Austin Aries. I can't even. It was it Jeff Hardy. I think it was.
Yeah, Jeff Hardy took it off. Yeah, Jeff Hardy took it off. And Aries did not like that. I'm guessing Aries really don't like them kind of gimmick matches.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember that was still during the time where they were doing Before the Bells, which I miss.
Those were dope. But like, as much as the Jeff Hardy Redemption tour was worthwhile, it was good. It was good. Storm and Rude was the right match to go with. Just like when you look at meme wrestling now, Joe Henry may not be the guy to go with because he's only popular right now in part because of his music. Maybe he transcends that. Maybe he doesn't. But when you look at Jack Perry, he's kind of the anti version of that. He's not liked for anything he's doing. He's liked for what he represents, which is anti-CM Punk movement. If you like Jack Perry, it's almost a 1-to-1 that you dislike CM Punk. And if you like CM Punk, you almost certainly dislike Jack Perry. Now, I technically fall into that category. I like CM Punk. I dislike Jack Perry. I don't dislike Jack Perry because of CM Punk, though. I don't think Jack Perry has a great personality. He's got a baby face and the body of a 12-year-old. He's got terrible hair. He's got no real authentic personality, and all he really is something that represents the animosity towards a wrestler. And had CM Punk never been fired or quit, depending on how you want to look at that situation, Jack Perry would never have had the catalyst for being relevant enough to be featured. And when you realize that, you realize that there is no heat there. There is no genuine heat with Jack Perry. It's all about symbolism with Jack Perry. People like him because they dislike CM Punk. And that's why Jack Perry has any sort of momentum. So I'm kind of left thinking, how the hell is this guy, going to keep getting pushed up the card, so to speak, when you can't keep profiting off of the one thing that made him relevant? It's like trying to sell a really poorly tasting drink, but saying, listen, it tastes like monkey butt, but it will cure you of all your toxins. Okay, well, we don't like toxins, so I'll drink the monkey butt juice, right? Then you find out, well, it doesn't actually cure you of your toxins. Then why am I going to buy it? There are better wrestlers, there are better personalities, there are better opportunities on this roster than what Jack Perry affords you. The only reason he's getting the push, in my opinion, is because Tony Khan wants to stick it to CM Punk. And Jack Perry is that, that weekly reminder, hey, you got fired because of this guy. And that's why people are gravitating towards him.
Yeah, maybe he looks at Jack Perry as what he can tangibly salvage from that situation outside of, I'm guessing at this point, backstage morale being good. However they project on that narrative. But, and this is a cool quick sidebar because we both kids of the 90s that love this. Because speaking of, it kind of seemed like coming out of that situation, he was a version of a fad for that situation. What would you compare him to in terms of like something we was into in the 90s that was hot just because it was a thing or whatever, but really wasn't good? I immediately thought about like the Sprite remix and the hotness of it because it was like, oh my God, what's the mystery flavor? And then we just never found out, and then like it faded off and never came back.
One, how dare you? Sprite remix was amazing.
No, absolutely, bro.
So I don't think there's a great 1-to-1 because Jack Perry is a nega meme. He only exists because somebody else is popular enough to be hated. And I can't really think of a great 1-to-1. Maybe like GoBots to Transformers? Right? Like you would have to look at like an off-brand thing that got enough momentum to be popular but not relevant. And got eyes on it but didn't maintain the course. So like the Dreamcast? No, the Dreamcast is good. The Jaguar 3600. There isn't a great one.
Yeah,
Give me time.
yeah.
Found it. What was it? The teenage. Oh, what the fuck was it? It was the. So do you remember the scene in Dragon Ball Z Bridge where they're like, "You ever watch Power Rangers?" And Gohan's like, "No." And he goes, "Oh, what about VR Troopers, Beetleborgs?" And he go through, and then it's like the tattooed alien teenage force from Beverly Hills or something like that. And Gohan's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Of course." That's who Jack Barry is. He's the tattooed teenage alien force. Let me see if I can actually find the proper name. Teenage alien force.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this,
Tattooed
because we it
teenage
just.
alien fighters from Beverly Hills. That's the Jack
Oh
Barry
wow,
equivalent from the 90s.
wow. 'Cause it was so many things that we see, because just so many ideas were being cranked out that was not necessarily original. So much in spin-offs of other things. Didn't the Hulk fist evolve from sock and boppers?
Hope Fist?
The Hulk fist, the
Oh, the
big green
Hulk
Hulk
Fist?
fist.
I would say, if not, it directly evolved from, took inspiration from. Because
Yeah,
Rock'em Sock'em Boppers, whatever the fuck they were called, were just like giant pillows, like inflatable
yeah.
pillows, which were great. And the Hulk fists were heavy and plastic, and they weren't intended to be used on children.
Like sock and boppers, more fun than a pillow fight.
Well, yeah, but unlike pillows, you can't fill them with things like Matchbox cars and 36-week-old candy, and use them to violently assault your brother.
Yeah, yeah. We used to be some creative devils back in the 90s, man.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of creative devils, Osprey and Ricochet took on Takeshita.
Takeshi.
I always fuck that name up. Kaneshke Takeshita, because like his name doesn't even phonetically sound like it should. Um, so like it confuses me. Everyone was hyping this up to be the Joe Styles Daniels Unbreakable Three Way of AEW. I don't know if it lived up to that hype. Mostly because I don't think Takeshi's that guy. They keep wanting him to be that guy. I don't know why they keep wanting him to be that guy. You have Will Ospreay and Ricochet; they can be those guys. So,
It just didn't mean the same for these three guys that it meant for the guys in the Unbreakable thing. I seen that comparison too. I didn't like it either. Um, and I also feel like it's another one of those things like somebody just trying to do something to rag on like classic TNA history. And maybe that's just me being biased. That's how I kind of felt. But yeah, I wouldn't compare it to that. Great three-way as to be expected. But yeah, I just think yeah, it just meant something different back then for those three guys because of where they were going as well. But yeah, we got a new champion, man. And I'm over to catch the fan than you are. And they told that story of Will, I guess, seemingly biting the hand, as Callis would call himself, the hand that fed him, and got turned on by his boy.
let it never not be said that Don Callis can survive in wrestling, and I say that in the most unflattering way possible. Speaking of flattering, though, I get the hype around Hologram and the Beast Mortos when it comes to like the quality of their matches. I don't think the Beast Mortos, formerly Black Taurus, was the right fit in TNA, and I still believe that. Hell of a hand, but
Yeah,
TNA needs needle movers. AEW has needle movers. TNA needed somebody that could raise the profile of their company and get eyes on them through either promos, in ring work, or what have you. And while the Beast Mortos isn't quote unquote better in AEW, for whatever reason, fans never gravitated to him when he was in TNA the way they did in AEW. I don't know if it was the meme of it all with Mortos, but people are interested. Again, we'll see if this, heat around him, the positive heat around him, continues on, assuming they can figure out what to do with him next. But he's in a better situation in AEW because he's not being relied upon as much to succeed as he was in TNA. He just didn't have enough of the credentials needed to elevate the brand like they needed him to do. So he's in a better place in AEW. Hologram has been a great addition. The former Aramis has been a great development. He's one of the first true original characters that AEW has created. In a lot of ways, like he's their, Tina when Tina had Suicide.
Mm.
I think he was very over. Great theme, great entrance, great look. Hologram has a better opportunity to succeed though, because he's not kind of labeled, with that kind of staunch, grimdark character. Like Suicide was like the demented character from the video game who his entire face was destroyed and had to get plastic surgery and so like, there's obviously a limit to what you could do with him, and the name hindered him as well. Hologram doesn't have those limitations, so I think he's in a much better place to succeed. I think. Darby Allin defeated Brody King in a match that I don't know why it happened. So like that's cool.
Yeah, like that didn't need to be on the thing, and Darby continues. You just gotta hope that I don't know how old is Darby? Still in his 20s, right? I would imagine.
He's either 29, 49, or 109. He's 31. Either way, he's doing not the Lord's work.
Yeah, whatever age he is, times for that's the mileage he's putting on his body. Yeah.
Yeah, he knocked off Brody King into the stairs, the steel stairs which were set up, which one, he fell off the top turnbuckle onto it. It's like, that sucked. And then Brody did a coffin drop onto him. And I was just watching it like, oh, okay. The fuck?
Yeah.
Bryan Danielson needs to assault this boy perpetually and prolonging into a point where Darby finally realizes, hey, maybe I should listen to Bryan Danielson. Because Danielson himself has even said, like, I shouldn't have done the flying headbutt as often as I did because it was a high risk, low reward move. And I feel like that's most of Darby Allin's moveset. High risk, low reward. I love Darby Allin. Great wrestler, great personality, great gimmick. Just don't want him to be dead by 40. That's all I'm asking.
Same. Yeah. It don't help. It doesn't help that he's like this generation's form of jackass outside the ring either.
Nope. No, it does not. The Young Bucks defeated Private Party in a match that I don't know why it had third billing. Private Party's a cool little gimmick. They've been around for 5 years, though. They've been around for 9 years, but in this incarnation since like 2019, so like 5 years. And they've never really done anything that I would say warrants them to be the face of the promotion as a tag team. That's partly on AEW for not putting them in that position. You have to be developed and presented and such.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to be developed and presented as such, you shouldn't be getting marquee matchups against the top dogs, because then the question is, well, I don't believe you're going to win, and even if you win, you don't help the belts. The belts don't even help you, and what's the point? So I feel like it was kind of a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, you almost want them to have some like that natural surge that we saw with the Acclaimed, which is why they had got the title, because it was just undeniable with their popularity they had grew to.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that feels like what they're trying to do with Private Party, like to tell this ultimate underdog achievement story. I see them hovering around the idea of putting them with the ever so entertaining Stokely Hathaway, who was quickly becoming one of the most wayward managers in wrestling history. Like, this guy is just all over the place. So he may be with them next, and maybe they'll be able to fight back to get to that place. But they definitely need to regroup and do something different. So
I totally agree. Speaking of need to do things that are different, why the fuck is Chris Jericho wrestling for a world title in 2024? And while some people will love Mark Briscoe, why the fuck is Mark Briscoe a world champion in 2024? I've never liked the Briscoes, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Jay Briscoe was a saint just because he died young. The man was pretty vile in a lot of ways and had a lot of views that were distasteful. Now, some people are like, well, he changed. I don't know that. You don't know that. That's just what people are saying. I don't think the Briscoes are the draws that Tony Khan wishes they were. And considering the interest in Ring of Honor, I would say Mark Briscoe's not moving the needle. And I don't know why companies keep giving title belts to dudes they like instead of title belts to dudes that will actually move the needle. Is there anyone in Ring of Honor who can move the needle? Not that I've seen. But that's also partly because of the fact that most of Ring of Honor's top guys aren't in Ring of Honor anymore. And it's also partly because the brand doesn't have a unique identity anymore. And they've done a great job minimizing the impact that the brand could have by sticking it behind a paywall and having their wrestlers only ever wrestle on occasion on TV. I don't know why they didn't just have Rampage be a Ring of Honor show or Collision be a Ring of Honor show. You didn't need a brand at Ring of Honor. Just only ever feature Ring of Honor wrestlers. Like, not a hard concept. And I feel like if you had done that, maybe the Ring of Honor title would have more meaning, but instead, like, Chris Jericho was one of the last few champions of the Ring of Honor World title, and that's kind of an insult. And it's also one of the ugliest fucking titles I've ever seen.
Yeah, they titles I used to complain about is the ones I miss.
Right?
Um, Particularly that Ring of Honor World Championship. That Jay Adam Cole and Jay Briscoe fought over. I just think it was just beautiful belt. We felt like it represented all the old and the newness of Ring of Honor. But hey, a lot of stuff, ideas, and whatnot change. But yeah, it's I think the Briscoe name is just so exclusively tied with the brand of Ring of Honor. And also, I know that they would likely want to tell that story of Jay finally achieving and getting to that top after his brother's untimely passing. So I get it. But you long kind of been calling for a very specified, definitive roster for that brand,
Mm-hmm.
and on top of giving them that TV time that Rampage takes up, which is basically Rampage is basically like Dynamite leftovers. That's what it feels like a lot of times. So they get very much because just featuring talent with titles that's on these AEW shows doesn't really do much if it's not gonna get the audience to be like, hey, I wonder what's going on in this Ring of Honor brand. And like you said, it's behind the paywall. The most you might hear about it is buzz that Athena rightfully gets for being really putting a brand on her back in a lot of ways. But in terms of world champions, I wonder if that would be a good spot for Joe. We haven't seen him in a while.
I think it would be. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things they should do. I think so. Like, here's the champions, starting with John Gresham, who was the champion when they bought the company. Gresham felt like Ring of Honor and Tony Khan in general didn't really see him for him, and that's why basically the company and him parted ways. He lost to Claudio. That was the first title change in the Ring of Honor AEW era. Jericho was the second champion. Claudio won the belt back. Then Eddie Kingston won the belt. Then Kingston obviously I think got hurt. I think is what it was.
Yeah, because wasn't he? He was the Intercontinental and Ring of Honor at the time, right? When he was going in that tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, then he went down.
Maybe he didn't get hurt. Maybe he just lost to Mark. I think he lost to Mark, then he got hurt.
Yeah, yeah, he lost him. Yeah, because I remember that match. Yeah,
And I don't know, I get the idea of having Mark win. Sentimental, his brother was a, huge part of the brand, so was he when they were a tag team. But it kind of just feels like the brand doesn't have its own identity, and they're not featured enough for it to matter. Like,
yeah,
you look at, like, Athena, she's held the belt for, like, 600 days. Something ludicrous. Like, just absolutely insane. But what has she done? Like, how has she elevated the brand? How is the brand better because she's been their women's champion? In turn, how is she better off because she's held the belt? There's a genuine and I think fair argument that people forget about Athena because she's on Ring of Honor's roster more than most. Because she's not being featured on television, because you're not seeing that belt weekly, people forget she's the Ring of Honor Women's Champion, and I'm one of those people. I like Athena. I like the brand. I like what they're doing with her, and even I forget that she's the Women's Champion. Out of sight, out of mind. That's sadly the world we live in, and I feel like Mark Briscoe not helping that narrative. I couldn't tell you who the tag team champions are. I only know Brian Cage is the TV champ. Excuse me, the TV champion, because I saw that he won it on the Wikipedia page. It's time to put some effort into the brand. And with Jimmy Jacobs on the way out, I don't know how that improves the creative, but hopefully it does. Speaking of creative, in the main event, Moxley defeated Bryan Danielson to win the AEW World Championship. This brings up the next point of conversation. A lot of fans liked how it ended. A lot of fans didn't like how it ended. What I would say is that I think there's no real issue with ending a pay-per-view on a dour note. I think it adds to the sentimentality of wrestling. I think it adds to the emotional impact of professional wrestling. And I think it gets people to be invested in ways that just having happy endings doesn't always do. I, for one, think losing and having bad moments every so often enriches the good moments. You can't just always have cake. You gotta have the Brussels sprouts. You gotta have the lean chicken. You gotta have the fruits and the nuts and all that nonsense. So when you finally do get to have a piece of that delicious chocolate cake, it matters more. Because you've done the right things for your body to be able to enjoy the desserts. Bryan Danielson winning at Wembley was the dessert. Now it's time to eat our vegetables. But I promise you the next dessert, it's going to be fantastic. And I don't understand why so many fans, and it's not even fans, it's bad actors in the wrestling space who are bitching about things to bitch about. This was a good ending. Bryan Danielson needed surgery. They need to put over their new top heel in Jon Moxley. They did it clean. He choked him out. Fantastic. Then, post-match, we saw who I believe to be the future of the company. Kind of, because one of those futures is 40. Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, Ricky Starks? No, not Ricky Starks. What's his name? Daniel Garcia. And Hook came down. And the show ended with the four of them kind of all sad and mourning one another after Wheeler Yuta murdered Bryan Danielson with a plastic bag.
It's all a part of the, as you say, my good friend, the drama of it all.
Yeah, you need the drama.
Cody finishing the story the second time doesn't hit the same if he didn't get it done the first time.
Correct.
If he had won the first time, because it almost felt too easy. As soon as he came back, he got put in the easy spot in the Rumble, won that, immediately got sent to the title, and really felt like an afterthought in that feud because Roman had other business he was tending to, primarily family business he was tending to, and Cody was just something that was put on his schedule. So when he lost the first time, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. You should have did it. And then they were able to build off that, carry all that emotion. You got all the Samoans breakdown stuff and whatnot, all the stuff with the final boss and whatnot, and it all culminated in something good. But you had to wait for it. Now, much like a lot of things that WWE gets right, they had to be damn near held at gunpoint into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it hit, and it hit right the second time. Now, with this whole Bryan situation, we know, I don't even know how many surgeries he likely has to have when he actually does slow down, but we know this was coming. He made no bones about it. He was slowing up. This was going to be his final full run. But even with that, it's like the way the storyline was going. Moxley said it's not about him. It's not about Bryan. The title is a means to an end to whatever the larger narrative is, which is still unfolding. Because the gag's supposed to be somebody's puppeting Moxley, and maybe this is, you know, a Meek Mahan that's been alluded to for some time. We don't know, but there's a larger picture at play here, and Bryan, who was the ultimate Cinderella man, didn't have things go his way. That just happens sometimes. But like you said, however this works out on the other side, it's kind of going to end up probably avenging that whole thing, and it might not be avenging by Bryan getting the title back. It might be avenging it by the next guy being up. I think you posted the pic and was like, who it was in the picture. It was Orange Cassidy and who else, and you was like the real pillars.
Yeah, it was Cassidy, Allen, Garcia, and
Yeah,
Hook.
yeah, those are the real pillars. Like don't mention to us about MJF and freaking Guevara who those guys are the real workhorses and whatnot. Not to take away from what those other two have done, but these are the one the fans, resonating with in a different way, and it's feeling like that's kind of almost been the destiny of Orange Cassidy for a while. Um, so maybe that's where things are going. But Bryan's had a phenomenal run, and everything that he's done, whether he's been on the winning side or not, has been to give back to a lot of these guys. So um, people kind of cracking out like it's the end of the story. It's just another piece of it. He's not fully done. He's not. He didn't retire. He's gonna be back. This may give him time to hopefully get healed as much as you can be when you actually taking a break. Because every time he's in the ring, something seems amiss, which is real for him because of the way he wrestles. But yeah, it's just another piece of the story. I think people just get mad when they don't get what they want when they want it. So
I think this is a build up to a new face of the franchise.
yeah,
It's either going to be Garcia or Allen. I don't think you can. I think you should go with Allen. I think he's got more of the. I think Garcia is the better promo. I think Allen's look and demeanor is more merchandisable. And I think
mm,
if you're looking for the guy who draws fans and pushes merch, I think he's your number one option. I think Orange Cassidy's your best of both worlds, but at 40, and I think he might even be 41 now, I don't know how much longer you can have him go at this rate. And while I do like Hook, he's got a cold demeanor. He's not a great promo yet. At least not from what I've seen. He might be. But he hasn't really had a chance to show it, so I think he has time. So I would probably go with the best, your most surefire bet, I think, is Allen. I think Orange Cassidy might have your biggest reaction, but your shortest fuse, so to speak. And Garcia might give you your best matches. So I would probably go with Allen in that regards. That being said, it's hard to miss with those four dudes. As far as Danielson goes, he is a free agent. There's talks about wanting to bring him back, and I don't think he's done wrestling. And I want to be very clear. I know a lot of people are like, he's retired. He's not. He used a lot of fluffy lingo, but he basically said, I'm still going to wrestle. It's just not going to be, as consistent as it has been. And I think that's fine. Let me see something.
he still has major neck surgery to get, or a major neck surgery to get. Like he don't have time, and he got two kids he need to be there for, and a wife. He got to, kind of come down to the wire. And he's closer to 50 than he is to 30. So, yeah.
And I do think when you look at him, one of the things that should be realized is that he's mentioned before that he wants to die in the ring. So I don't believe for a second he's actually done. I think he could end up going to a different company. I think he could end up going on a bit of a tour, so to speak, where he wrestles once a month. I could see that being a thing. He could do major shows. One of the things I think he should consider doing, if he does resign with AEW, is joining Joe and going over to Ring of Honor, where Danielson wrestles only on major shows. So he'd wrestle 5 or 6 times a year. And I think that would be great. I think that's exactly the role he should be in. And then Joe could be your headliner and Danielson can be your special attraction. You can actually put some legitimacy and some earnest effort into the Ring of Honor brand behind those two dudes. mean, that's the way to go. But we'll
I
see
mean,
if my opinion is noteworthy.
we just got talking about Ring of Honor need eyes, and Bryan got the people eating out of their hands, and who don't love Joe? You know what I'm saying? The
Right.
only reason why I think they took the AEW World Title off was because just Swerve just had the popularity momentum at the time. They could barely get through a contract signing because they wouldn't stop saying whose house. So it was a decision. But if you reignite that feud with those two names so closely associated with that brand, and particularly and send Bryan over there after obviously he closes out main AEW business. Yeah, I think it'll be fantastic.
I hope so. I really do. That being said, we're talking about Danielson. Another major name looking to retire soon. Hiroshi Tanahashi, the former ace of New Japan, now serves as the company's president. They made some big decisions that we'll talk about here in a moment that I think were the right plans to go with. He is trying his best to embrace Inoki without falling into the pit that Inoki did as a booker and as a self-headliner himself during the time period. Inoki turned New Japan into a wannabe shoot fight company, and it nearly killed the promotion. Tanahashi has no desire to do that, but he does know that he needs to make new stars. Tetsuya Naito has no knees anymore. A lot of people seem to think that he is done as a headliner. And Minoru Suzuki hasn't been seen in New Japan outside of like a couple of appearances this year. In fact, I think he's wrestled more in MLW than he has in New Japan this year. So there does seem to be an emphasis to push younger guys. Tanahashi retiring and taking a step back makes all the sense in the world, but it does kind of bring up a little bit of a sad moment because he is truly a legend of the wrestling world. And it sucks to see him on his way out, knowing the impact that he's had for years. Marcus, are you shocked by Tanahashi's announcement that he'll retire at the start of 2026?
No, I mean, look, the man's done everything that you can possibly do in the company. Also always been that ace, always been that go-to guy. But like you said, with age, injuries, and certainly elevated responsibilities with his new position, it's far more things for him to consider and then cater to now. And if the true goal is to really bring younger guys, he can't be one of the guys that's also in the way and in charge at the same time. And yeah, you kind of had to know it was coming. We've been watching them for so long, so many years, and all good things come to an end. And obviously, we feel like we see far more longevity out of the Japanese performers, but they too retire. It's just go feel like the end of an era because he is outside of Inoki, he is the jersey to put up in the rafters for them.
Yeah.
So I think it's also the last piece of true change because we've seen the entire narrative flip with New Japan. They've had to because they've lost so many of the guys they relied on for so long. The whole Bullet Club fell out from under itself. So many names left, and they've had to really shift their mindset in terms of the guys they put in new positions and build upon because they've just had a lot of old reliables that aren't there anymore. So I think he really will be the last of the Mohicans in that regard, and it sucks, but new direction is where they have to go.
I agree. His goal, though, is to wrestle for the title on his last match. And he's already kind of released a quote saying that if he wins, he'll extend his career until he loses. And if he loses the title match, he'll just retire. And considering he wants to retire in 2026, early 2026, I wouldn't be surprised if not this coming Wrestle Kingdom in 2025, but the start of 2026's Wrestle Kingdom is headlined by whomever the champion is versus Tanahashi and Tanahashi's farewell. I think that's the right move if you're looking for ticket sales because Tanahashi still draws, and the women still love good hair Tana. So I think that's quite honestly the way to go there. Speaking of other ways to go, We have a new not Ring of Honor, new New Japan World Heavyweight Champion. It is, of course, how the fuck am I blanking on his name?
Zack Sabre.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Zachary Sabre Jr. I was like, why am I blanking on Zachary Sabre Jr.'s name? He defeated Naito, what was it, 2 nights ago?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the match yet, but I've heard good things about it, and I haven't heard many good things about Naito's last run with the belt. So that's good. Sabre Jr., I think, is every bit as good as Bryan Danielson
Yeah.
in terms of an in ring worker, at least during like his tenure. Like, let's just say, he really got his claim to fame. I know he was in progress for a while. I think like we really started to know how good he was in 2017, 2018, right?
Yeah.
So since 2018, I would say he's every bit as good as Danielson has been during the same stretch. Maybe not historically as good, but if you're looking for the three best in-ring technicians, depending on how high you want to view Daniel Garcia, it would probably be Danielson 1A, Sabre 1B, Garcia 3. I don't know if I buy Garcia being a top three guy, but I know a lot of people think he's as good as Danielson is now. I don't believe that, but that
Where you
seems to
put
be
Gr-
the
yeah,
sentiment.
where you put Gresham at?
I'd obviously put him in the top five. It's hard
Yeah.
for me to say for sure, like if he's number three, number two, number four, because like
Yeah.
I might forget someone. Like Mystico's regained himself, a hell of a run, and he's 40, and he's survived the WWE promotional machine, and I say that with no love intended. So like, it. There's a lot of guys you can consider. Gresham's the top five guy though, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
Saber, so's Danielson, so's a whole number set of guys.
Yeah. It's cool to finally see him get that chip. Like I said, I think I was chatting back and forth with somebody in the DMs, and then they put up the shot of him winning, the great shot of him winning. Then I hit him with the LeBron. It's about damn time gift because we just got through talking about AEW pillars and talk about New Japan. Like we live in a time now where it's like what you looked at the New Japan pillars, maybe who Okada, Tana. At one time, Okada, Tana, Shinsuke, and what Minoru. All those guys are in different places now, and it's not New
Mm-hmm.
Japan. So, like I said, it's a completely different dawn and day, and I think Zach finally getting the chip because, he was there for a significant portion of a lot of those guys' runs. I'm pretty sure he crossed paths with all of them. And obviously was tied in the faction with Minoru for the last however many years, and then, now he's finally on his own. All has always been consistently the standout in the G1. Finally won it, and now he finally got the big chip. So, it's one of the most overrated chants ever. You deserve it, but I think it's appropriate for somebody like Zach because from all sides he's the guy you go with. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he does with his reign. Like you said, Tetsuya is kind of done. It felt like they was always gonna make Sonata the bride. I mean, bridesmaid. They finally made him the bride, so they got that out the way. And now it's Sabre Junior's turn. So it was something real cool to see, and the fact that it coincided at the same time with the announcement that Tana was gonna close things out. It's just like I said, the winds have shifted in New Japan, and they got to go where the best direction it is. So
Zachary Sabre Jr. wasn't the only headline maker this week. We'll talk about her here in a second. Joe Hendry also making some waves. I don't know what that was. Joe Hendry's also making some waves. Basically saying in 4 months people will have a little bit of a different tune. A lot of people are suggesting that he's going to be at the Royal Rumble in February because it's going to be on February 1st, which is stupid, whatever. And honest to goodness, it feels like Joe Henry is biding his time until he leaves TNA for NXT. It feels and it comes across that way in his wrestling. He doesn't seem to have the same pop right now. Maybe it's just who he's wrestling. Fair play. But it does feel like he's far more focused on what he does in NXT, and his time in NXT, in my opinion, has overexposed him because he's not so unique enough in his week to week that you can put him on 4 hours of television each week and not be creatively exhausted. He's not The Rock. He's not Stone Cold. He could be if he finds that next gear, that next hook, that next gimmick, but as long as he's this version, he's limited. And I do like Joe Hendry. I think he's a good wrestler. I think he's a great personality. I don't think he's got enough there, though, to bring the promotion forward past where it is today. So if he wins, I don't know what happens to the company. Marcus, I do think there's limitations with him. I do think he's looking for his next contract with a different company. I do think those two ideas limit how willing I would be to put the belt on him. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's interesting and specifically interesting with you kind of leading off with that point because for so like you was one of his most staunch and consistent advocates before he started picking up momentum because you saw something and the brilliance in that pre-meme ability, if you will, with that charisma, that kind of the shinings of an it factor, if you will, and like you said, starting to slowly but surely bubble up in TNA, but then he kind of got the partnership thrown in the NXT, and for as good as NXT has become in this iteration of it, it still is very much a niche audience, even though they've done a great job at making NXT feel seamless with the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
It still is very much a niche audience that even more so than I feel like the main roster loves them with a good theme song, loves them a catchy catchphrase and sound bite or whatever. And that works for him in that regard. But again, if he's going to just be in NXT and never really be able to elevate, because we've seen a number of times where people have thrived in NXT and absolutely been demolished on the main roster because it just didn't carry over. So with Joe, great wrestler, has had a lot of great moments, but has the time that kind of passed on the got you moment for him to get the belt. Nemeth's been great as a champion, but we've been calling for other names like, Bayley, who's, having another X Division run right now. Like to see Gresham elevated. Santana's been, I think, having a proper build towards a world title. And you got some other names in there. So I don't know. I wonder if the moment is passed him by in that regard. And I wonder how much of that moment being passed by was helped by how much he was made somewhat of a priority in this whole NXT thing.
It's certainly an idea, certainly a thought to have. It hasn't affected Jordan Grace the same way. But I think when you look at where they both are, Jordan is a cemented headliner,
Yeah.
while while Joe Hendry's not. I think when you look at kind of like exposure rates and the crossover of it all, yeah, I think Jordan Grace is looking to leave for an NXT contract too. But she's also proven that she is loyal to TNA, that she has put in her best effort, and while it will be a hard loss to deal with losing Jordan, they've recovered and rebuilt before. With Joe Hendry, it feels more like it's an opportunistic situation. Jordan Grace has put in the time, she put in the energy, she put in the blood, she put in the action, right? She's had 6 years with the company. She decides she wants to move on elsewhere. I feel like if anyone can quote unquote earn the right to leave and still be beloved, it's her. Joe Hendry has been here once before and left because he didn't like the way he was being booked. Got brought back 2 or 3 years later, was given a rocket strapped to his ass, and now he's like, cool, I'm gonna leave. And everyone's like, you just got back. You're only popular again because TNA put you in the situation to be popular, and you're just gonna bail the first chance you get. There's animosity brewing now because it feels like he's using TNA to catapult himself to a bigger platform as opposed to Jordan Grace, who built herself up with the platform. It feels like Jordan Grace is selling, the company to a bigger buyer and cashing out, while it feels like Joe Hendry is selling off parts of the company to make himself a profit. One was a good investment. The other one is a what's the word I'm looking for? It like a private equity firm. Just wholesaling parts of the company just for shits and giggles, just to make a profit. And it feels scummy. It really does. That being said, we'll see what happens. Nothing's set in stone. I don't have the same hype for Bound for Glory now that I did have a month ago, but maybe I'll feel differently when the card gets fully fleshed out. But on the other hand, I thought we were building up to Rosemary versus Jordan Grace in a singles match at Bound for Glory, and all of a sudden they pivoted to Masha Simovic, and I don't know why. So I don't know. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Last bit of news though. Toni Storm is the number one woman in the world according to PWI, women's 250. My yearly spiel: if you're gonna put women in the men's 500, don't have a women's 250. If you want the women's 250, take women out of the men's 500. I don't know why we have both things going on simultaneously. They're either separate and equal, or separate but equal. I don't know why there's two platforms. That being said, I do love the women's 250. I do agree that Toni Storm should be number one. I will, however, point out that it's a little odd that the kind of booking for these lists is different depending on the genders. Like when you look at men, it's biggest company, best matches, most profitability. While with the women's, it seems to be most influential. I think it should always be most influential. And if that was the case, so many WWE names who won it, like Seth Rollins and John Cena, what have you, wouldn't have. So I do feel like it's a little odd that they have different standards for both sets of lists. That being said, the top 10 has been revealed. I'm still waiting on my issue for the top 500, by the way. I don't know where it is. PWI, we're going to need to have a conversation. Top 10 for the women, however, are Athena at number 10, Maria May at number 9, Willow Nightingale at 8, Bailey at 7, I think her name's Sari at 6, Stephanie Vaquer, Micah, I don't know how to pronounce that name. I think she's a Stardom wrestler. Micah at 4, Rhea Ripley at 3, Jordan Grace at 2, and Toni Storm at 1. I think if the only person that I would have had over Toni was Jordan Grace. So there you have it. Marcus, thoughts on the top 10 of the women's 250?
Yeah, where's Athena? And was she 15?
She's 10.
Oh, gosh, Athena. Good. Okay, yeah. So I like that. I like that 10. I like to tell a couple of names, obviously, like you said, that we wasn't familiar with, but I'm gonna trust it because Stardom always puts on some great stuff. Definitely not arguing Tony at the top between obviously the match quality is there, but what she's been able to do with that character has just been really just something to watch. Because you really felt like she was rudderless for a while, and for her to commit the way that she did to that character, it speaks to her creativity, but it also speaks to the stick to itiveness that most people just don't have. So yeah, phenomenal with that. Like you said, much like the only person I would have put atop her is Grace, and all the other names is quality. But also, again, you know, all the people listening, I don't put these lists of cool and stuff, but it's like asking somebody who's the greatest of all time. Everybody's gonna have a different thing because it's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't put too much stock in these lists. I know a lot of fans, kind of overly get into the emotional bags about this. Is not that big of a thing. As long as you are still able to watch these people wrestle, get their stuff in, they gonna, the list is gonna vary anyway. This is just something that's an industry thing that happens. Some take it more seriously than others, both on either side of the aisle. So um, it's cool, and the fact that folks like yourself are still collecting the mag is still a cool thing. So
Yeah, I'm a fan of physical media, and I probably always will be. That being said, is there anything else you want to touch on before we head off for the night?
no, that's about it. No news. Did we see any scuttlebutt about Starks That's just still a thing that's in neutral.
Yeah, there's been no headway on that.
Well, on that, guess we'll be previewing, full on previewing about BFG, I guess, on our next show. So look
Yeah.
out, look out for that. Anybody that heard us talk about last week about those shows that featured Vikingo, Ricochet, and the Rascals on Glee, those shows are up on the Glee channel for free. All Glee shows are free, full on shows, and all the cards for those shows are on Cage Match. So go and join that mega show that they did, which features those names. It was a hell of a show.
I saw some of it. It was enjoyable, and
Yeah.
I hope to check out more later. All right, so with that said, let's wrap up the show. Be sure to follow us on the Twitters at NerdCorp, NERDCORP, and on the website at realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCORP.com. You can find us on the Twitters at ParadoxKid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find us on the. You can also find Marcus on the other channel, the one that he was just mentioning, at True Penny Show on Twitter. TruePennyShow. So check them out there if you want to cover and find out more about GLEAT. Then you can find me on Twitter, Chad Nerdcorp, CHED, and on the Instagram at Chad's photo at CHEDSPHOTOHUT. We'll be back next Tuesday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for getting us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. Find us on twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground and youtube.com/Wrestling Underground. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you. Have a good one. Marcus, take us on.
Good night, meat.